Hello everyone, welcome back to Mining Indaba. My name is Ahmed. I am the senior content producer on this year's show, taking care of our government programs. As part of our digital diary series of October, focusing on government, it is my delightful pleasure to introduce an interview with Vusi Mabena, Executive Secretary of the Mining Association of Southern Africa. Vusi, hello, how are you, sir?
Sir, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm in Cape Town right now, so I'm doing this on site. But yeah, a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you very much. It is good to speak to you too.
Thank you. My first question, Vusi, is when we're looking at investment into Africa, specifically mining operations, exploration, etc., within Southern Africa. In your perspective, what are the key things, maybe three key things Africa can do to improve its investment opportunities?
Okay, thanks very much for that question. Factors that actually encourage investment in mining in Africa specifically. One would like to say perhaps countries that have guaranteed security of tenure on their mining rights, on all the mining rights that they have issued, tend to attract investments. If investors see that all other investors or people who have got mining rights are guaranteed tenure, security of tenure, you'll find that that country being flooded by other investors because they know that their investments are secured. So that's one major thing. I would also like to refer to some of the things that came out of the Fraser Institute, and because they are so pertinent and important, and it's things that are actually currently happening in Africa. And if African states do not take heed of these, we are going to actually lose more investors, from mining in the African continent. So another attractor of investment is policy certainty. Those countries which do not guarantee policy certainty actually tend to scare investors away. When we say policy certainty, we mean if a government chops and changes within short time cycles on mining policy, investors are chasing security and certainty. If there's no certainty, they actually tend to shy away because they are actually putting their own funds at risk. So that's one major thing. Maybe still linked on that, we can talk about regulatory systems regarding environmental regulations. If we've got firm and clear environmental regulations, investors tend to say, okay, we can live with this and we can continue working on them. Especially these days where we're looking at clean technology, we're looking at emissions and things like that. If government is clear about how they would like to handle those environmental issues, investments tend to want to stay. The legal system and taxation regime is also very, very important. If you are not clear about your tax system and your regime, and you're going to implement or bring in new tax laws at short intervals, that is actually make investors upset. Infrastructure is very key and important, where if the infrastructure is not right, and infrastructure, let's face it, although private sector is involved in working, in collaborating with governments to ensure that infrastructure is right, it still remains the responsibility of government. Where there is stability, where there is proper infrastructure, where it is easy to man because infrastructure is there and has been laid out, investors come in. Less red tape. We'll talk about that when we look at other countries. Less red tape and long, prolonged bureaucratic processes for mining rights. That discourages investment. I know of a country where for more than 5 years there's not been an issue, there's no mining right being issued because the government is decided. So those are just for me the basic fundamentals that governments need to look at to make sure that they attract investors into their various jurisdictions.
Yeah, and I mean, you touched on a lot there. The regulations, the risks, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things going on in the continent that do, unfortunately, preclude some from wanting to put their money down. However, in order to focus on the positive within Southern Africa, there has been a lot of movement in a positive direction, specifically from a few countries like Namibia and Botswana. And I want to focus on them for a bit of our interview. So if I can ask you first on Namibia, what is your opinion on that jurisdiction? What have they done to effectively demonstrate success and attractiveness to investors?
With Namibia, I want to separate those factors into two. I want to talk about general incentives that they've used to actually attract investment, but I also want to talk about fiscal incentives. So let's talk first about the general incentives. Number one, the country made a conscious decision to do geological surveys, using high and making sure that they know where all resources that are endowed in that country, where they are and where they can be found. So an investor goes to a geological survey department in Namibia and says, I want to pick a mineral, lithium. I want to come and invest in lithium in this country. From exploration to mining, where should I be going? I mean, they don't scratch their heads. They say, if you go to this region, to this place, this is what, and this is the potential. What a pleasure. So you don't waste the time of the investors by saying, well, we think, So that conscious decision to spend money to do that geological survey in the mine makes it easy for investors to come into the country. And by doing that, obtaining thorough geological survey has actually opened the doors for many. I can tell you, in the Southern African region, putting together both the general and fiscal incentives, Namibia, has attracted most investment in mining than all 12 mining jurisdictions in Southern Africa in the recent years.
Yeah.
So they've grown much better than us, and this is one of the reasons. Obviously, they've got good infrastructure, and they're actually still improving in their infrastructure. They've improved on Walvis Bay for exports. So that is very important. They've got good roads. They've got good roads around their mines, and that is encouraging investment. The rule of law. They apply the law, without fear of favor.
Yeah.
And if any mining company is found to be out of the law, it gets dealt with immediately. And that's what investors want. They want the rule of law to be implemented, and to be implemented swiftly and properly. And then political stability. Namibia is one of the most stable countries in the region politically. And when it's election time, there is swift handover from one government to the next. And that political stability is very critical for investment, because they know that their investments are not at risk, And then we can look at security of tenure enshrined in the Constitution. So if you invest there and you purchase a piece of land and you get your mining rights, you get guaranteed that government is not going to interfere with the tenure of your mining rights before it expires. Whilst in other jurisdictions, this uncertainty actually discourages investment. Policy and regulatory strategy. There, Mining and Development Act of 1999 and revised in 2019. You know, can you see? 10 years. It takes 10 for the law to settle and for the people to operate within that year before they consider changing it. Investors like that kind of certainty, you know. And one of the good things happening in Namibia is cordial relations between the private sector and the government through the Chamber of Mines of Namibia. You know, when you go to Namibia, for example, I know for sure if you're a mine and you want to actually go and try to be smart in the government, they ask you a question: have you been to the chamber? Do they know that you are there to come and talk about this issue? If you haven't, then you know you are in trouble.
Yeah.
Because they know that the full and proper voice of the mining industry is in the chamber, will engage with the chamber. You know, and if therefore you are not happy with the government, you speak with the chamber, and the chamber thinks that you've got a valid point, they're going to represent you with the government. Obviously, they take you along, you know. And then when the government sees the chamber in front of them with you, then they realize this is a genuine problem that needs to be addressed. And that kind of relationship helps to create stability for mining. These are just but a few generic incentives that make it easy for mining to take place. But let's talk at fiscal incentives from the mining point of view in Namibia. All exploration expenditure is recouped against taxes in the first year of production, should an exploration project end up in a fully fleshed mine. Wouldn't you want to go and invest there?
Yeah.
If you know that your exploration risk capital is actually going to be returned. That project finalizes in the first year if that project becomes a mine. You know, that is a very big incentive for investment, and they're getting it right. And that is why when you compare exploration investment, again in the region, Namibia comes number one.
Yeah.
Because everybody is going there to invest because they know that if they've hit the right places and their exploration becomes proper mines, they are guaranteed that from a tax incentive, they're going to get the benefit. That's one big one. Yeah, what did you want to say? I wanted to move to the second.
So point. I was just going to say it's a tremendous incentive. You know, it significantly reduces the risk of exploration activity, but also incentivizes explorers to develop projects and invest heavily in order to develop them and get them operational quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me run, and I can see we're running out of time. Exploration companies can now register unhindered for VAT and can submit input VAT claims in Namibia. I'm not going to expand on that in the interest of time. And then the next point I want to raise, royalties and export levies are tax deductible in Namibia.
Yeah.
In other jurisdictions, there's still a big debate. Should we tax or shouldn't we tax? To what extent should we be taxing, royalties and things like that? Should they be deductible or shouldn't they be deductible, tax deductible and things like that? Now, an investor will be attracted to go to such a jurisdiction if they think, if they see such. There's another one, in fact, on a straight line for 3 years, capex can actually be recouped. You know, so an investor looking at that kind of situation saying, well, look, let me go and risk my capital in that kind of environment where I know that my investment is secured and I'm not going to be taxed heavily unnecessarily. and I am actually going to get the return for investing in that. And it's a win-win situation for both the country and the.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that's Namibia.
Yeah, thank. That was an incredibly astute exploration of that. So I appreciate it. Yeah, and my second country that I kind of want to focus on is Botswana. Now, last month at the Africa Down Under conference, President Masisi, really did in his speech demonstrated how Botswana has, the institutions of regulatory support and change, and really demonstrated the message that Botswana is open for business. So I really want to give the remainder of our interview, I want to focus on, in your perspective, what have they done? Similarly to Namibia, what have they done to achieve success?
Okay, that one, Namibia is the darling of, or is, let me say darling, is the envy of many private institutions when they look at the relationship between between government and the private sector. I mean, the old relationship between the Botswana and the government and the arrangement that they have there. Okay, there are very, very few jurisdictions that can match that. Someone can say, but they've had that lynch. I'm saying, look, you could have at least, this is a negotiation. It's a give and take, and government eventually realized that for stability of the mining sector, they need Botswana, but Botswana equally in return recognized that they needed the government and they had to settle, and now they've another long-term agreement, which is very far and few in between amongst other jurisdictions. Okay, that for me is one obvious one, and the president actually, I'm sure, demonstrated that in Australia Down Under. Just like Namibia, very good tax incentives for investment in mining in Namibia. Okay, there are various incentives. Tax deductibility on royalties is just one of them, and which is similar to Namibia, obviously, but the permutations are slightly different. Okay. Oh, license procedure simplified. There are countries where it takes you more than 300 days to get your mining right. In Botswana, it takes you 90 days, which is just 3 months.
Yeah.
Then you're sitting with your mining right. In some, as I've said, there's another country in our region where for more than 5 years, the government has not issued one mining right. And that country is endowed with minerals and it's losing, boom and bust, it keeps on losing because it's not issuing mining rights. It's losing on investment opportunities, on investors who are hungry for minerals that are in that particular country. And I would imagine, I'm dreaming of a day where almost all 12 jurisdictions in the region, because there are 12 real mining jurisdictions in the 16 SADC countries. There are 12 real mining jurisdictions. If in the 12 jurisdictions, we could have a system where it's similar like a banking system. When you apply for a loan, you get your answer within 24 or 48 hours maximum, whether you've got your loan or not. Yeah. A system where, in Botswana is sitting at 90 days. In 90 days, you get your answer whether you've got a mining right or not. Okay, and that is what a pleasure for an investor who is interested in mining. What is nice about Botswana is that they invested a lot in skills development. So when an investor comes, he doesn't struggle to get highly qualified people for whatever mining project that he wants to participate in, and in attracting locals to participate in that mining project. That is an incentive for investors because they don't have to be grappling around looking for skills that are not available and actually delaying their mining projects. Mining in Botswana, for example, their education and skills spending per capita is about 25 to 30% of GDP. I would imagine even more. Somebody was actually saying it could be reaching up to 35% of GDP.
Wow.
And small wonder, therefore, why they are so skilled.
Yeah.
There are people in Botswana. They are encouraging beneficiation in the country, but they're not encouraging to actually put pressure on mining companies to do beneficiation. They are encouraging people who are interested in investment in beneficiation and creating that collaboration between beneficiation and mining industry. Okay, so an investor going there knows that I am not going to be forced to to beneficiate. I'm going to use my core skills, but I'm going to collaborate with a beneficiator to beneficiate the mine so that I can benefit and the country can benefit. That
Sure.
an investor is something very, very attractive. On that issue of licenses, the one point I wanted to actually include, which I did not include, is the ease of getting mining rights, including in environmental impact assessment mining rights. I mean, environmental rights, if you like. So that is just in a nutshell what Botswana has done to attract investment, and they've done it correctly. And so we all envy them when we think of that. Sometimes you sit with the Chamber of Mines of Botswana, and they tell you that we are reviewing our laws to make it investor friendly. You don't hear that kind of language.
Yeah.
in other jurisdictions. How do I make my laws to be investor friendly? I wish all other governments in the region could actually be making that kind of statement, because we always in the region, we always lose when there's a boom, because we are trapped in laws that are not investor friendly. And so that is that. I could say though that Botswana, because it's landlocked, it gets trapped in
Yeah.
poor infrastructure by its neighbors. and then it's not losing out sometimes because it is stifled by its own rules. It is losing out because it is stifled by poor infrastructure arrangements around their neighbors for it to actually succeed from an export point of view. That's all in a nutshell I wanted to say to you about Botswana.
It's incredible, and thank you very much for that. I mean, it's terrific to hear that we generally often on the negatives about the attractiveness of investment and the ability to get foreign direct investment into projects. But it's always nice when we can focus on the positive, and especially those that get it right. And I for one, and I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing more about Namibia, Botswana, and others in the continent that are actively evolving, actively developing their permitting, their jurisdictions, their regulatory positions to support greater investment from outside. Vusi, thank you very, very much for your time. Before I wanted to close, is there anything that you wanted to summarize, or any final points you wanted to make?
Not much, though. What the last thing really that I would like to say is that it's really what we in MEASA are working on, because we need to learn from examples like the one in Namibia and the one in Botswana. But we need to build a strong collaboration amongst member states in the region, and that can only happen if the ministers of mines in the region come together and actually share best practices,
Yeah.
not necessarily from an investment point of view, because investors will do that, but from a policy and regulatory framework point of view. What makes your regulations to want to attract? If ministers could actually come into some kind of a platform to discuss that and then review their own policies to say, okay, that is a practice that I can sort of take out and then go and try to see how best, I can, all in the interest of growing the mining industry in the region. We are one of the richest or highly endowed regions in terms of minerals in the world, for that matter. If you are going to count 12. And we need to grab that and actually leverage ourselves on that by coming up with policies that will make the industry or the region to be attractive, not only just one or two jurisdictions, but the entire region. And that can only happen if we have a proper understanding and collaboration and understanding of policy. Some people want to call harmonious policy harmony or regulatory harmony. I understand that it's going to be difficult because each of us in the 12 jurisdictions are unique. But in our uniqueness, we can make it a point, we can make sure that we learn from one another what makes investment easy and try to actually review our policies to align ourselves to attract investment attractiveness for our own jurisdictions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And we look forward to hopefully utilizing the upcoming mining Indaba next year at Cape Town to be that platform for ministers, for ministries and partners such as MIASA and others to help discuss that best practice and develop those organizational and harmonious policies. So once again, Vusi, thank you very, very much for your time. I appreciate you joining me today. And thank you everybody who has joined us. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.